The race is marked by a terrible accident. Renzo Zorzi's Shadow is at a standstill on the track, its engine smoking.
Being the world's premier racing discipline, it's not overly surprising that Formula One is also one of the most dangerous. While safety measures have been frequently amended over the rich history of the sport, and protective measures like driver halos and improved survival cells have been tirelessly implemented to further lower the risks of racing, the safety measures of the past were far more rudimentary than the regulations today would ever allow. This is exemplified by the tragic case of the 1977 South African Grand Prix. The 1977 Formula One season was notable as racing legend Niki Lauda not only had a stranglehold on the championship standings, but also would go on to win the season. The championship was well underway when the proceedings arrived in South Africa for the third race of the season, but unfortunately the race weekend wouldn't be remembered for intense driving or the podium winners, but would instead become known for a tragic series of events that took place on race day. Thomas Pryce was a promising Welsh driver who had begun his Formula One career in 1974. In 1975, while driving with Shadow Team, he would claim his first of 2 podium finishes. He also holds the accolade of being the first Welsh driver to win a Formula One race, after winning a non-championship event known as the Race of Champions, which was held at the historic Brands Hatch British circuit. The talented driver became well respected amongst his peers and gained a reputation for performing well under poor racing conditions. At the South African Grand Prix, the practice session was held on a Wednesday during rainy conditions. Despite the conditions, Thomas would perform better than the rest of the grid, setting the best time of the day. In any other circumstance, this would be a good omen for the rest of the weekend, but this wouldn't be the case when the checkered flag fell on race day. He would start the race in 15th position with driver James Hunt leading the grid. By lap 22, Thomas had managed to work his way up to 13th position, but it was at this point in time in the race where the tragic series of events would begin to unfold. Thomas's teammate, an Italian driver by the name of Renzo Zorzi, would pull onto the outside grass of the track, his car suffering from a malfunctioning air-fuel ratio unit, which caused the fuel to pump directly onto the car's engine. While the car was stationary, it would burst into flames with Renzo still inside. He failed to exit the car immediately due to having trouble with disconnecting his helmet from the oxygen pipe of the car. As the car burned, 2 track marshals who were situated on the pit wall along the main straight of the track would rush into action in order to try and extinguish the fire. The 2 marshals ran onto the track, the second of which being a 19-year-old by the name of Frederick Jansen van Vern, who was carrying a fire extinguisher. As the 2 marshals crossed the track, 2 drivers approached the chaos at blistering speeds. Thomas was drafting closely behind another driver by the name of Hans Stuck. As they sped down the main straightaway, the next events played out in a matter of only seconds. The first marshal was nearing the opposite side of the track when Hans Stuck approached at full speed. He was able to barely inch over to the right side of the track, avoiding the 2 marshals by only a handful of inches. Unfortunately, Frederick was still on the track as Thomas approached directly behind. Not having any time to steer his car out of harm's way, having drafted so closely to Hans, he had no time to react and ploughed through Frederick at speeds of up to 270 kilometers. Frederick died instantaneously. His body was thrown through the air, hitting the barrier before coming to a stop only a few yards in front of Renzo's car. Thomas Pryce's car continues speeding down the main straight towards the first corner of the circuit, his car veering off the track and scraping against the inside wall before tagging the car of French driver Jacques Lafayette, which sent both cars off track. When Thomas collided with Frederick, the fire extinguisher that Frederick had been carrying across the track made contact with Thomas's head before flying through the air, which violently snapped Thomas's head backwards, killing him instantly. The shadow car sped down the main straightaway with its momentum alone before it came to a stop, having been lodged in a barrier. In the case of tragic racing incidents today, races will often be cancelled or postponed. But in the 1970s, the show would continue. The race was seen to its conclusion, with Niki Lauda taking first place amongst the chaos. Lauda, who hadn't been informed of Pryce or Frederick's death until after the race, expressed sorrow for the unfortunate accident, despite that win being his first back in F1 after his own near-death experience only a year prior. His comments after the race expressed an absence of happiness. Frederick's body was so badly mutilated by the accident that he was only identified after the race when he was the only marshal absent from a standard meeting. An unfortunate example of how little credit and recognition marshals get in motorsport, even when their job turns lethal. The tragic accident that took place at the South African GP in 1977 perfectly exemplifies how simple the rules and safety regulations of F1 in the past really were. Many rules that now keep drivers and track marshals safe today were directly influenced by that freak accident and many others. And in today's motorsport, it's very unlikely to see a race continued after a death occurs. While it was a different time, and there is no point in vilifying the rules of the past, it's definitely a good thing that the FIA has come so far when it comes to ensuring that the cars, tracks, and races are as safe as possible. It can't be understated how in the space of seconds racing lost one of its very respected talents and a family lost their teenage son. Thomas Pryce was a competitive, accomplished, and talented driver who would have no doubt been considered a living legend in his time, a driver that many people believe could have won a world championship one day. Frederick was a young man who rushed to help a driver whose car had just caught flames. He saw an older marshal run over and followed his lead. By all accounts, he was only doing what he was instructed to do. Yet in a matter of seconds, his life was tragically ended by the very cars that everyone came to see that day. What is really unnerving about the footage that has been captured of the tragedy is imagining how it must have felt to be there. From different angles recorded at the exact moment of the accident, you can see Renzo flinch as he sees the crash happen only feet away from him. The surviving marshal looks over to see the body of the young man laying in the grass. Thomas's car speeding recklessly down the straight and ploughing into the wall. While the history of motorsport is vast and storied, it's the 1977 South African Grand Prix that will go down in history as one of the sport's most tragic races.